Well, everybody, welcome to our continuation. We just got done doing our Flash review, and this is
Flashdance, starring
oh, who did they say was in Flashdance in it? It was
Michael J. Fox.
Yes, star. yes, the star of Flash. No, Footloose. They said. Yeah,
Yeah, the same thing.
yeah. No, that was a good bit.
Isn't it the same movie?
No, Flashdance is about the female steel worker. Oh, what a feeling being. She does the bucket pull and hits herself with water as Flashdance. Footloose is about that town where you can't dance.
The tiny town of Footloose.
That's a heck of an intro. So this is welcome to another episode of Drink Tank, a continuation from our Flash review. If you haven't seen it, go watch it because that'll be out much sooner than this because this will be a little more in depth and require more editing.
Ooh.
It will.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It might. May or may not. Depends. So famously, we just came off seeing The Flash. And we were talking about what's next for, like, how does DC go forward? And then we were talking about, like, well, it's going to be under James Gunn because it did so poor in the past. And we were starting to think, like, well, where did it go wrong? And this is something that, like, we've talked about kind of in private and with, like, a few of our friends and stuff. And we decided, you know what, just sit here because we're fresh off The Flash, which we enjoyed. And we're going to do spoilers for every of the DC movies potentially. So if you don't want to hear about DC movies, you've been warned. We're going into spoilers. We're going to talk a little bit about our thoughts and feelings on this DCEU failure.
And here's the thing. I proposed this because I actually thought The Flash was going to be the last movie in the DCEU. But no, there's Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 coming out. And
they don't really count.
Is there even a third one?
I'm
not counting them either, but
Also, you can't count like Joker or the new Rock.
No, you can't because those aren't in the DCU.
Yeah. Sorry, DC League of Super Pets, not making the cut.
I know when I was looking at the list, I was like, "Where's the DC League of Super Pets?" It's got Dwayne the Rock Johnson and Dwayne the Rock Johnson and Dwayne the Rock Johnson
and Kevin Hart because they can't do anything with it. Actually, at some point, Dwayne the Rock Johnson is just going to be played by 3 Kevin Harts in a trench coat. So. Yeah, to both of our surprise, we like The Flash. And we were really, I know that they're coming out with Blue Beetle, and I know they're coming out with Aquaman, but it was Blue Beetle is an origin story, and I think it's going to be a throwaway one.
Yeah.
Trailer doesn't even look like they have any confidence in it, really.
No, the trailer looks garbage.
There's no trailer yet for the new Aquaman, as far as I know. There might have been some fan footage. I don't know. My days of going online and doing deep dives on things are kind of over because
they are, yeah.
I find out too much too fast, and then I'm just like, what was the point? Like, now I know. And but I like the first Aquaman a lot. I saw it on Christmas Day with my father and brother. We went to the Mystic Cinemas, and they let you get like a 26-ounce beer. We sat in high back chairs. It was like a laser projector, new surround sound, and that's what inspired me actually to be like, I'm never going to the movies again because it'll never be as good as this. And inspired me to buy the projector and surround sound setup that we enjoy occasionally. So
that makes sense.
So Aquaman for me always has a bit of a soft spot, and if this is truly the death knell of DC, I'll probably try and go back to Mystic to see what I think will probably be the last of the DCs.
Yeah, and I think this is the last major DC project. It's the last one that has as much buzz. The Flash has had so much buzz, and I think it's partially because of Ezra Miller's supposed legal crimes, legal issues.
Yeah, we'll call them legal issues.
Who knows what he'll get convicted of? Who knows what they'll get convicted of, if anything?
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard when someone's so masculine presenting, and I'm just not used to it.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, like Ezra Miller, by all accounts, very troubled individual. Yes. So I'm not giving any credo or credit to somebody who's like so clearly out of their mind.
And it's funny that they were in. We need to talk about Kevin, where they play like a psychopath.
I never even puzzled that together.
No.
That's a good one. But say what you will, Crazy does well in movies, so pretty good acting in this. But
I think that helped. Like I was saying before. The Flash is a much more representable character than Aquaman, and B. There's just so much buzz around him.
Jason Momoa's got so much like screen presence and swagger though. That post-credit scene of The Flash, like again, spoilers for everything, where they walk out of the bar and Barry's like, I tell you, I metabolize things too fast, I can't get drunk, and Aquaman is like pissed drunk.
Oh yeah.
That was so fun. Like
laying down in a puddle.
And
the two I live right there. He's like, I live right here.
And those were the two who guest starred at the end of Peacemaker as well. So they're the only ones having fun here, which I think helps. And I want Momoa to do well.
Right.
For the obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Like, very likable, affable person. At least comes across that way. Hilarious
Yeah.
in Aquaman. But we'll have to wait and see. I like the first one, but I mean, the sheer over-the-top nature of it with like shark lasers and giant sea monsters.
I mean, that was fun. I wish
can't
it had
do
been,
it again, though.
I wish it had been less busy.
It's very busy.
It's too busy.
Very
But I
busy.
mean, when the giant spider crabs and everything
Yeah.
come out of and the 3 megalodons that Jason Statham fights with a sword,
No, that was the trailer for the Meg. And they're not swords, they're spears.
the mighty slash with it.
I don't know, actually. This is going to be the worst movie we see.
Oh, this is so
I love it. But yeah, so DC obviously doesn't know how to handle their properties, is really kind of the thing that we always settle on.
I think it was in this case. Yeah, because they didn't handle it well because they handed over everything to Warner Brothers, is what I've basically heard. I've heard that a lot of stuff was, like you mentioned before, how Marvel kind of writes scenes and says, you got to put that in there.
Right.
DC did that, but afterwards.
Right.
They would shoot the movie, then DC guys, or Warner Brothers would
Yeah.
go, also, I want this in there. They're like, what?
rushing to get to the Justice League for your third film is a big mistake. Huge mistake.
We didn't have any Cyborg before that.
We had no Cyborg, and you know when Zack Snyder famously had to step away after his daughter's, I believe she committed suicide.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
didn't know
So
that.
he and his wife had to step away because his wife is a producer, and the two of them work together.
Yeah.
Zach and Deborah, I want to say, and so they were like, "Well, who's going to do our Justice League? How about the guy who did the Avengers, which we're trying to rip off?" And so that's step one in failure, right? Man of Steel, I know wasn't everyone's favorite because it was too dark, too angry, but I didn't mind it.
I remember we watched it together with Casey,
Yeah.
and we liked it.
Yeah, I came out of the theater fine with it.
We came out saying, what movie did the critics watch? Because we liked it.
Yeah.
And then I talked to some Superman fans and some other people.
Right. And that's
and
where
I
the-
understood where they came from. So, I mean, realistically, where did the DCEU go wrong?
Out the
And
gate.
out the gate, they just
Out the
kind of
gate.
slipped. Which is a shame because everyone loves Henry Cavill. And if you don't, click. Done.
Yeah, you're done. And it's a shame too because he advocated so much to play like the more comic book Superman. That's what he wanted to do. And to talk about mismanagement as well, after Black Adam, they announce he's back. Fans are excited. Then they take it back right away.
Yeah.
No, Henry Cavill, he's built like Superman. There are stories for an older Superman. Your lack of creativity, you're not going to find an actor who's going to do a better job.
He's not really an older Superman yet either. Like,
No, he's fine.
what is he? He's not even 40 probably.
I think he's got to be. How old is Henry Cavill?
How old am I?
Too old.
Oh.
But yeah, no, you're right. Giving it to Zack Snyder, at least, yeah,
I mean, Zack Snyder he has his own style.
he does. So
And maybe it wasn't fit for a cinematic universe,
better fit for a Batman, I would say, than for a Superman.
But he would have to start with Batman.
I know, he didn't.
So it starts with Superman, and then it goes immediately into Batman vs. Superman, where Wonder Woman shows up in that one, I think.
Yes, that's also the introduction
And
of Wonder
doesn't
Woman.
Aquaman, look at him or
Yeah,
something?
there's a file where they click on it, and it's like, there's Aquaman, there's the Flash, there's Cyborg screaming in pain.
Right.
It's lame.
We haven't seen them in any movie. We see a file of them.
Yeah.
Batman doesn't mention them.
No.
He doesn't try to get them in his help to save the world because he thinks Superman's destroying the world. So, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, I really, really don't know. But that being said, Batman versus Superman, I like the first 2 hours, sort of. I love the introduction of Bruce Wayne. I like the idea of Gotham and Metropolis kind of being across the bridge, across the bay from each other.
That was funny.
It's kind of
it wouldn't happen. But,
No, it absolutely does not work that
well,
way.
I mean, I guess sometimes big cities are across from each other, like New York and Newark.
Or I think they were going for more like a San Francisco and what's on the other side of the bridge, Oakland, or I don't know. California's not
Las
really-
Vegas and the desert.
my favorite cities. New London in the ocean. So, but what were we talking about now? I keep thinking of maps, and now I don't.
Metropolis and Gotham right next to each other.
And so that's how you get Bruce Wayne running into the destruction of Metropolis at the beginning of the movie, which I thought was well, that tells you everything you need to know about Batfleck. And
I thought he was just
sold.
I thought he was just doing a business in Metropolis.
Yeah, he was trying to get there. He was trying to get to because remember he's talking to the guy on the phone.
I figured they were in different cities. They were really far apart, and he was just there on business.
He was.
But they're across the bay from each other?
Yeah, they're across the bay from each other. Yeah, yeah. I kind of like it, but it is also a little ridiculous because it's
They
like,
just try to make it more convenient for some reason?
yeah, they just needed, yeah, because
Like
they,
everyone can't travel at hyper speed in this universe?
yeah, dude, you're right. He doesn't even have time to break out the bat jet before Superman's like, "What's up?" He's like,
Wonder
"Aw."
Woman doesn't even come in an invisible... Oh, she learns how to do that in 1984 using an invisible jet.
Oh, let's save my rant about Wonder Woman 1984. No, let's not.
No, yeah, we got it, yeah.
But anyways, I liked Batfleck, and again, Zack Snyder. I think you're right. It may have been the production notes, too much in the movie, too bloated. The ending doesn't make sense. The casting kind of fails when it comes to Lex Luthor with Jesse Eisenberg. Is that his name? I'm tired of these goofy, kind of like eccentric Lex Luthors. I want them to be threatening like Clancy Browns in the cartoons.
Yeah.
Like that's it. You're talking like evil Bruce Wayne, evil Iron Man kind of guy.
Right.
That's what I want. I don't want this like Gene Hackman or Jesse Eisenberg kind of like eccentric type.
Right.
I want the guy who is like, okay, this is menacing.
I'm going to stop Superman because I actually have the knowledge to do it,
Right.
and I am a threat to Superman.
Right.
Instead of just being like, the red hats are coming.
Yeah, no. And again, the movie was too long. People were like, it's like, oh God, Man of Steel's like 2.5 hours. This is 2.5 hours. It wasn't getting reviewed very well, famously because like, what is happening? The next movie is going to be Justice League? I don't think so. And people knew
Hello,
that.
Bruce Wayne. I am here, and my name is Gal Gadot, and I am here to also steal something. Why?
Plot-wise.
I'm
He has
here
a
to be
picture
in
of
the
me.
movie.
Yeah, he has a picture of her. And then during Justice League was when Zack Snyder had the tragedy and had to step away, and they gave it to Whedon. And he looked at all the footage that Zack Snyder had already filmed, and he's like, ew, no, ew, gross. And did the reshoots with Cavill's mustache being edited out and all that. And then you want to talk about just losing, you've lost your base. You're 3 movies in, people weren't already happy with the dark tones, and then you get Joss Whedon come in and this patchwork monstrosity, everyone could see it. They're not filmed on the same film even. Like they
Really?
didn't use the same grade. So if you go back and watch it, like the color correction, nobody did any color correction. It doesn't look like one movie at all.
That's funny.
Oh, it's terrible. Like, it's so terrible.
Well, I mean, once I watched the Snyder cut, which
Yeah.
they spent God knows how much money putting
Too much. I
together.
think it was like a couple million. Too much.
Probably more than a couple. But once they put that together and seeing the ending and seeing the actual like end battle that they were gonna do, instead of like we're going into a city and we're gonna beat up Steppenwolf and the Flash is going to run around saving Russian family.
Superman
Like,
flies a building. He flies a whole building. That's not how buildings are structured to work.
Get them away from this! Oh, I've got to run fast to save this family. Even though and like they that scene was there for the international audience. They put it in specifically for them. The town didn't even matter in Zack Snyder's cut, and like that whole and it's like
Right.
20 minutes plus of time devoted to that arc. And it goes nowhere. It doesn't need to be in there. We don't need, and I don't know. We don't need it. And I wonder if that was Joss Whedon that put it in there because he's like, we need stakes, or whether it was WB guys who were like, let's go international.
I feel like it's probably a combination of both.
Yeah.
I probably feel like Whedon was like, I am the guy who did Avengers, and they were like, we put faith in you. So like when he very famously, now it's coming out, was a monster on set.
Then he goes, I am the guy who did Avengers 2, and they were like,
Avengers Dose, you say? The Age of Ultron. Well, James Spader was a good grab. The end. So, yeah, no, and then, oh God, I don't even.
I mean, even the Snyder cut of Justice League didn't save the movie.
I think it did.
I think it was good, but I think it
Vastly
I think
improved.
I think it showed that he clearly had too much in his head still. With the 20 I know maybe they put some in there just because. Like this is where I would have gone, but I think we would have seen those in the real one too. I think the theatrical release would have had that.
No, very famously, I don't think there were a ton of reshoots done for this one because I know.
No, I'm saying it would have had the Martian Manhunter showing up and all that stuff. I think.
Oh
those
yeah,
scenes,
he would have had
those
that.
scenes would have been
yes.
in there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, as opposed to them being done in post, like because
Yeah.
like Ben Affleck's all gaunt now. because he's not like swole anymore. Dude, he got in good shape for Batman versus Superman.
But I'm just saying. I don't think Zack Snyder would have saved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think he would have saved the theatrical release of the film.
And again, I think a lot of that is probably because, you know, Man of Steel not well received by the community. Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, train wreck,
Trash.
There's zero. I even now I'm struggling to remember if anybody was even excited for Snyder's Justice League. I cannot remember.
There is a set of DCEU fans online.
Yeah.
I think I know one of them because I know one of them is actually like a DC fan.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he cares about the movies, but I know he goes out and sees everyone because he likes DC. And there are people who enjoy the movies,
right?
For sure.
And then so while we're talking about Batman, Superman, we had just casually touched on Wonder Woman. We have to mention Wonder Woman because those are DC's big three.
Yes.
Those are, if your side projects suck, you can still get Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman together, right? That's their holy trinity. They actually have a comic arc, the three of them. It's called Trinity. I've not read it, but I've seen the trade paperback or whatever graphic novel. And
That tracks.
so Wonder Woman, the first one comes out, right?
Yeah.
Does pretty well.
Yeah.
It's well reviewed. Everybody agrees. Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, wonderful chemistry, great dialogue. But what do they do at the end? CGI monster fight, and it completely it's out of tone with the rest of the movie.
You know what would totally have fixed the movie for me?
Yes, and that's why I brought it up because I love your idea. Go on.
If Ares at the end, he's like, I caused World War I, but instead, if at the end, like Wonder Woman's kicking his ass, and she's like, you did this to the world, and he's like, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like, I didn't do this. This is humanity, you piece of shit.
I would have loved that so much more, especially if we would have avoided the CGI monster fight at the end. And that's pretty much my biggest problem is that the movie, like all that goodwill and awesome stuff they do at the beginning, the ending just sucks the air out of the room. I'm like, oh.
And where did she put her sword?
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, yeah, that I'll forgive marginally ridiculous things.
Yeah, no.
But like, yeah, so I'm like, yeah, that is quite silly, but it's not a deal breaker for me. CGI boss fights at the end of these movies. Like, did they learn nothing from Batman versus Superman? That was the biggest complaint. I know.
No, that's where DC
learn.
went wrong.
They never learn. And then, if we're still talking about Wonder Woman here, let's add to that problem was that Patty Jenkins successfully directed Wonder Woman, and then she fancies herself a scribe now. She's like, ooh, I want to get in on the script writing for the second one. Clearly, I have a grasp on the character. So she and Jeff Johns sat down to do the script for Wonder Woman 1984. And it's like, was there any oversight on that script? It's all over the place. Her powers vary wildly. Like, they don't seem to... Like and just oh my god, this like
by then the WB like execs had been blasted for interfering with movies, so maybe they didn't give any oversight because they wanted to.
Yeah, you could be right.
I don't know. This is all theory.
Man, they gave who Patty Jenkins had too much control in that movie. It feels like that the movie is just hard to watch. It came out on it was HBO Max at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like Christmas Day or something like that. It dropped, and so I'm sitting here with my parents, and I'm like, am I having a little too much eggnog? Because this movie's hard to follow. So I was like, I had just chalked it up to too much merriment, and I was like, I'll get to it again tomorrow. Maybe I'm being hypercritical. It could just be me.
Yep.
So I watched it the next day sober, and I was like, oh God. It was better when I was drunk. The movie doesn't make any sense. There's like huge gaps in logic. Like he doesn't like. How does Steve know how to fly a jet? How does that jet have enough fuel to cross the ocean? Like my God! And then
how does any of the wishes work?
And it's just like you don't need to do that. You know what I would have loved for a second Wonder Woman movie? I would have loved if it had been. It's like you see like a wedding dress and like a tuxedo or something like that, right? And you pan up and it's Wonder Woman on her wedding night and she's married to Batfleck, right? And she starts telling him stories to fill in the gap from her time in World War I to the modern day. And it could have been almost like anthology or vignette style.
And it turns out that she's Scheherazading him so she never has to sleep with him.
Has to? Gets to, I think. Keep in mind, this was Swole Fleck. But the two of them had such chemistry in those films, and I just just do it, you cowards. This isn't an anime. Your main characters
No,
can get
we gotta
together.
put Chris Pines in the body of a.
Another man and just have him be raped the whole movie, essentially. Yeah, that's whoa, boy, oh boy.
But in between Batman vs Superman and Wonder Woman was Suicide Squad.